Good afternoon. Welcome to Community Matters. I'm honored to be your host here for the next couple of hours. My name is Becky Steinbruner, and you are listening to Community Matters because it certainly does. I would like to first thank our host location, that is Satellite Work and Digital Media Center, located at 325 Soquel Avenue in Santa Cruz. That's between the Ocean Street area and the beautiful San Lorenzo River. You can stop in here anytime. Look them up on the web, but they have free opportunities for you to come check out their clean, safe, secure, very excellent facilities here. If you need a space for working remotely, a remote meeting, to gather have a place where you can have a mailbox that is not your home if you're working from home primarily. Satellite Workspace and Digital Media Studio, 325 Soquel Avenue in Santa Cruz. The second Wednesday of every month is free. You can come in and use it, and you can stop by any time and get a tour of the place. And I cannot recommend them highly enough. So, we are honored here to have on the phone Mr. Ed Mitchell from the Never Again Moss Landing group, a phenomenal group, grassroots organized, that began after the Vistra Moss 300 battery energy fire in Moss Landing. And I'm honored to have you here with us today, Ed. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ed Mitchell, one of the founding coordinators for establishing Never Again Moss Landing. Shortly after Tonya Rivera, who was what I call patient zero, the first person to stand up in North County and said, we need to do something, and she started reaching out to people. Shortly after that, a number of us met at the Prunedale Grange and decided to work together to try and figure out how and why the Vistra disaster happened, and that started us down the path to where we are today. Along that way, because of my background, I volunteered to be a lead investigator for the public, not to wait for the state or anybody else, but to see what we could pull together about the largest lithium battery storage facility burning down in America. So I'm here, Becky, if you have some questions, toss them out and I'll try to answer them.
Thank you. Ed, is it all right if we invite the listeners to call in as well?
Sure.
Excellent. All right. You in the listening audience, please feel free to call. The number is 831-265-5050. Again, 265-5050. And I'm here with Mr. Ed Mitchell, the investigator leading the group of Never Again Moss Landing. Ed, how were you affected personally, you and your family, by the Vistra fire?
I was up at friends of mine. We live in Prunedale, and they live uphill from me. And I was at their house. We heard something on the TV that there was a fire at Moss Landing. So we walked about 13 feet out through their patio door and took a look to the west. And the sun was going down, and we could see the two smokestacks, 500-foot smokestacks, from where we were at, and we could see the flames in the air. About my estimate from looking at it was about 200 feet up of flame.
Wow.
And the burning, there was a glow, and you could see the vapor rising to the plume, and you could gradually see the plume starting to form. It was interesting that day was uncommon in the sense that there wasn't a lot of wind. Usually there is a steady breeze blowing one direction or another, south, north, east. But it was a still night, and so we could see this plume forming. And one of the things I thought to myself was, I hope they have a drone up taking some samples of that, because that thing's got to be dirty. I didn't. It was a few days later. I was driving from my house north, crossing Highway 101, headed towards Castroville Boulevard, because the Grange is over on Morrill Road. And as I came over the Passover, I could see out to about where Laurel Road is, which is beyond Morrill Road, and there was a odd-looking cloud there. It wasn't normal. There was something, a stillness, a thickness. It just wasn't what I've seen here, having lived here for 30-some years. And then I sucked in this cloud of something. You couldn't see it. It was translucent. It was like I hit bad air, and this crap got in my body, and I couldn't breathe. So I pulled to the side of the road and put on a mask. And that's how I'm waiting for results now from the VA to see if I've got something inside me, some heavy metal. So that's how it affected me personally. The other thing it did was we went a few days after we formed up. The Board of Supervisors held a emergency meeting. And in that process, one of the supervisors asked the regional vice president of Vistra, well, how many batteries are in the building? And he truthfully answered and said, 100,000. And when I heard that, actually the people sitting around us, was about 8 of us that were there, you could see people that they like winced. It was like, Jiminy Christmas. And what I thought was, I hope to hell they didn't put the 100,000 batteries in a single building, in a single room. And so that got me going after, why did this happen? Something's wrong here. And so that got my motivation, because having been in the government, in the Army, having a Bachelor of Science degree from the Military Academy, Naval Postgraduate, Master's in Management, having qualified, went to the Defense Systems Management College, and becoming DOD Certified Material Acquisition Manager.
Oh, wow.
I've worked in the area of new technologies, of on both the government side and then at Lockheed Martin, about fielding new technology. So I had a bent towards, there's something wrong here systemically. And so that's when I really raised my hand and said, let's go after it.
Yeah. And what were your thoughts about the initial reaction of local agencies, public safety agencies? What happened that way?
Excuse me, I didn't have my phone turned off and it was making a bunch of noise. Could you re-ask that question?
What were your thoughts? What happened in terms of local public safety and health agencies stepping in? Did you get information to know and understand what was happening there, and what precautions you needed to take?
There were some phone messages that went out, emergency, about evacuating. The fact of the matter was, the state of California and Vistra were not prepared to respond to a fire like this.
Yeah.
For example, literally, the state representatives showed up unprepared without any meters or means to measure heavy metals. my question about the drone, I went and talked to the fire chief in Castroville, and I asked him if they had any drones to just help the first responders be able to see the disaster site from an aerial view, so it would be safer for them to realize, okay, can we reach the building from this side, or are there any walls slumping, or is there fire or anything off-site or on-site? They didn't have that.
Wow.
Nor was there a drone that you could have sent to fly through the side of the vapor rising, or go up into the plume and fly into it and then come back down and have what's known as a ghost wipe or a scrape wipe, where you wipe the material, that residue, whatever liquid, off of the drone, and then take it to a spectrometer someplace close by, so you could get, within 4 hours, you could have a good reading of what the public is facing in the cloud. They didn't have that either.
Wow.
The response in terms of what we were told was there were meter readings of HF, hydrogen fluoride, which is lighter than air, and so it's going to sink whether you're standing on Highway 101, either north of the site, at the site, or south of the site towards Castroville, or even inland towards down Dolan Road. That type of measurement, if you don't get to the lowest area, it's likely you're not getting a solid reading. And so there wasn't the one thing that did not come out immediately from the radio or from the emergency response that the county has was anything about wearing a mask. It was go inside and close your windows. Later on, there was an update to that, you should also wear a mask, but not right away. Nor did the state's medical health department organization, did they have an issue, send an issue down to the medical organizations in the county about, hey, there's a fire, there may be people that show up with symptoms X, Y, and Z, and so that the health department would recognize that, okay, the people coming in saying, hey, I breathed in some crap, would actually realize that, yes, they may be telling the truth, and that we need to respond to them with the likelihood that they may have received some type of pollution poisoning. That didn't happen either.
Wow.
Now, let me give you a little background about the state of California, because in the investigation, one of the things we found, using the PUC, Public Utilities Commission, who's the regulator of the state's regulator of public utilities, energy storage as well as energy generation. And their mission statement is to provide affordable, reliable, safe public utilities. Well, they failed in that. And how many times have they failed in the last 3 years and 4 months? 8 fires in California, going from starting in San Diego County in April 5 of 2022, then Moss Landing September 20, San Diego County 2 times, Orange County 1 time in 2024, Otay Mesa, that's down by the border between U.S. and Mexico, Escondido. Those fires all occurred, and then there was the biggest fire that occurred in America and destroyed the biggest storage facility. That's 8 fires, 3 years, 4 months, or almost 2 fires a year, or at least 2 fires a year. And there's not been one sampling by the state agencies we could not find any reported sampling of downwind conditions.
Wow.
They did not do it. They did not do that at the Moss Landing fire. And that's when we started looking into the background and pulling up records from the PUC. And there's all these other fires. And you go, well, why are there zero reports of downwind? It isn't something they do or want to do, apparently.
So none of the fires have had proper response with downwind air sampling? None of the fires that has happened?
We can't find it. We can't even find a report of what is the California's analysis of what would be in burning lithium batteries.
Uh-huh.
You know, where you're pushing forward on a technology, and you're having these fires that go on, and when these fires, those of us who have seen them, or you can go online and look at them, they punch out a huge amount of vapor and smoke and pollution. No, they ain't doing it. They didn't do it. See, you can't find anything if you don't look for it. And the appearance is that California is deliberately not looking for it.
Wow.
So that's the type of response that occurred. Also, for example, 8 days after the fire or so, the DTSC, Division of Toxicology Containment, or I don't have the name exactly right, they took samplings outside the fence at 8 locations, outside the perimeter fence of the burn site, where the Phase 1 building and the fire occurred next to the smokestacks, where people, if they were traveling, might be exposed. Okay, and they didn't find any place that would be dangerous for people.
Was that?
They didn't go on site, though. They didn't go on site where you had workers and first responders, and they didn't do any sampling there. So it appears that if you don't have an analysis like was done in December of 2022 in England of lithium batteries burning and what is in it, if you don't do that at the state level, and you don't do any downwind samplings like the one that could have been done on the 18th of January when I gobbled in a bunch of the pollution, and we had this lingering cloud along Dolan Road, or it's Dolan Road and Castroville Boulevard, the east-west road, running from San Miguel out to the ocean and where the burn site was. You've got lingering clouds, and you don't have any state officials going out there and sampling. Why not?
Why not? Indeed.
Okay, time after time after time. So let's go back to the mission statement of a friendly PUC. That means that you have a fire, you failed your mission.
Yeah.
You failed it in 2022 and 23 and 24 and 25. That's what we are seeing, and that's what we've uncovered using the state's data.
Yeah. This is shocking that there was no plan in place and no response that one would expect from an industrial toxic hazards accident. One would think that there would be something in place and that the state would know how to respond and would respond. But I'm hearing there was zero response from the state.
Yep.
That's incredible.
That's the data we've come up with. You go, why didn't you guys drive a few miles downwind and find and look and see where this cloud is going into the highland, because it's higher than we're uphill Prunedale from where the fire was. Why don't you drive out there and take some samples?
Yeah.
Nope, didn't do that.
Yeah. And I'm assuming the EPA came in some time. I don't know, how long did it take for the EPA to arrive, and what did they do when they did arrive?
I actually don't know the timing on that, and I
Uh-huh.
don't know what they did or didn't do. I haven't, nor I believe has anybody else seen any report from the EPA or many reports from, there's no preliminary report by the PUC of some initial findings. The DTSC has a report filed with the county, and their findings is there's no danger
Oh,
at their readings.
oh my
So
goodness.
it's hard to trust the state when you see these holes going on.
Yeah.
And so it appears that the PUC has had too much focus on fielding the new technology, and have ignored or insufficiently cared about public safety.
Yes, indeed. For those of you just tuning in, welcome. You're listening to Community Matters, and I am here honored to have with me by the phone Mr. Ed Mitchell from Prunedale, part of the group Never Again Moss Landing, who formed immediately in response to the January 16th is when it began, Moss Landing Vistra battery plant fire, because nothing was happening. And Ed, you're telling me shocking information that the state, whom we all rely upon and just figure, they're going to come, they're going to help, they're going to do their job, they have not. They've completely failed.
Along those lines, one of the things that we came across was that there has never been issued, that is, before the Vistra fire, nor afterward, a code for how to do indoor storage. Now, you've been doing a number of previous interviews with people, either from Morro Bay with the BESS, where Vistra was trying to go into Morro Bay in San Luis Obispo County, also in Santa Cruz County, the three projects that are headed there, and in Monterey. And that's been bringing out information that's useful to the public to start to realize to what degree the PUC is, how well they're regulating. And I'm going to say that, one, they failed like 8 times, and they had no regulation to direct or use to inspect what Vistra did in the first largest storage facility in America, and it was for them too. So there was no, what they basically did was allow the operator, in this case Vistra, to do what they want, self-policing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you figure it out and you do it. Even if you go down that path, you could still go in the building and walk around and look at the design. I don't know if they did that. One of the things we did in our report, which we submitted to the Monterey County Board of Supervisors on Tuesday, 3 June, so last week, was we included 20 questions that we think the PUC should be asking or be asked.
Mm-hmm.
And this self-policing, the question is, well, how well did it work?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it poorly worked, and it would be good to find out who inspected the building.
Yeah.
Because as you go and start looking at, well, how are things done, the fire, and when we looked at the operator, we used Vistra data or LG Energy data, that is photographs, reports, news releases that they had. And in doing that, they did a double stacking of what we called a row unit. Is you have a row of racks, and then they put another set on top. So they had double stacked row units. I use row units, not the terminology used by the industry, but it helps a public understand, oh, it's a row of battery, and there's racks, and the batteries are stuck in the rack. And 396 batteries in a row unit, almost 400. And then how much was the distance between the rows? Mm-hmm. So we were able to calculate that out to be about 5 feet 6 inches. And actually, when you look at pictures of the Phase 1 building that were shown to people in Morro Bay, you may recall there was your people you talked to down from Morro Bay.
Barry Brennan.
Yes, and that there was in March and April of 2024, Vistra held these community meetings twice. The same information was shared. And the questions came up from the public about, well, what about the incident in September 4th, 2021 at Moss Landing? And they did show a picture, the Vistra showed a picture of one of their techs in the Phase 1 building standing between two rows. And it looked even closer than 5 feet 6 inches apart. So they're what we called densely packed.
Yeah.
So you had a high quantity of densely packed batteries in across one floor, according to the county documentation during the application, what was submitted by Vistra, reviewed by the Planning Commission, that there was going to be 100,000. There was going to be 200,000 batteries in two phases, so it turned out to be 100,000 in Phase 1. And they were going to use the third floor and the first floor, so we assumed there was 50,000 batteries on each floor. Mm-hmm. That floor was completely open. There was no like a containment wall to separate the batteries, so that if you have some of them burned, you can contain and suppress. Big old open floor, and there were some other things where you get to the feeling that it's potentially possible that the storage inside the building, and a lot of what you've had in the past, or a portion of what you've had in the past, has been talking about outdoor storage. Uh-huh. This was Vistra's first indoor storage, and so they had no code from the state on how to do it. There's pictures showing the densely packed batteries, not a lot of room between them. Why that is important is distance is often used for mitigation, to keep the fire from jumping from row to row. In our report, we used a little picture of a kangaroo to convey to the public, you want to stop the kangaroo from jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
So if you put these things in close together, it is easier for heat, thermal runaway, to reach another row. Now, we don't know what the ignition source was. But when you look at the pictures, like from KION and KSBW, or if you were an eyewitness closer, the flames show you that the building suppression system did not work.
Yeah.
And the building containment system did not contain. So the suppression system didn't suppress, and the containment system didn't contain. So why didn't the suppression system work? Well, it either wasn't there, but we're pretty sure that there was some suppression unit there. It wasn't big enough, wasn't fast enough, or it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
In any one of those conditions, what we said was that one of the contributing factors to the disaster is not just the battery. You get a lot of talk from people and from the industry about, we had this battery, but we're going to move on to this next battery. Mm-hmm. We, in our investigation, are saying, wait a minute, if you take a systems engineering look at what happened, it was more than just a battery. It included the suppression system, and therefore some software issues might be involved, and then the layout of a room.
Yeah.
When you have 50,000 batteries laid out along 700 feet, and if you get thermal runaway, you're prone to burn down the whole damn floor, and therefore the whole damn building,
mm-hmm.
and that's what happened.
And that's what happened.
Yeah. So when did the PUC come in there and inspect that design and look at it and go, hey, this is hunky-dory?
Mm-hmm.
I can't answer that question. I think the PUC should self-investigate itself, but that takes some integrity and some courage by people doing the investigation to come up and say, hey, the regulator, there were not just operator weaknesses
mm-hmm.
in the law and the design, but there are also flaws in what the regulator did. We need to clean them both up.
Absolutely.
And that's not an attempt to, from our standpoint, it's not an attempt to stop the industry. It's saying you got to look at what's really going on and clean that up, because let's bring this back to Santa Cruz County.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 projects for storage headed into the the
Santa Cruz
County, and they're moving into places where, if you look at, let's compare where you're putting in storage, the terrain and the urbanness and the fire fuel, like trees, fields, that type of stuff. If you look at where they're going in to Santa Cruz County versus the open area that we had over at Monterey, and you say, well, what happens if one of those 3 has a fire, uncontrolled? Does it drive up the risk? Is because of the placement, the site selection, and if you had thermal runaway, does it make it more risky for the public, for your kids at school, for the people in the hospital, the business that are around them? Is the facility operator going to be able to contain an uncontrolled fire so that it won't spread to an urban fire or urban forest fire?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things why we say never again Moss Landing. We're trying to help communities assess, like the supervisors in Santa Cruz County, to sit down there and recognize and have an appreciation for the hazards. Mm-hmm. See, the lithium battery industry technology, there's this story that's told. It's along the lines of this. It's a great green technology because we're moving away from this fossil stuff. The problem with that sales pitch is that 3 words are left off. It's not a completely honest statement. And the 3 words are this: it's a great green technology when it works. Mm-hmm. When it doesn't work, it's hugely toxic. Yes. And the Board of Supervisors, each one of them, or the planning commissioners, if they understood that, I believe in Monterey, which was in 2019, they did not have as much information or the history of fires in state that we're right now able to look at. And they didn't have that insight about when it works, it's good, but when it doesn't work, it's really bad. Yeah. That story wasn't floating around, and that's part of what we're trying to share with people, both people like in STOP lithium BESs in Santa Cruz County and down at Morro Bay. We're trying to help those. With our report, we think it's helpful for them to see some of these insights and go, okay, Board of Supervisors or planning commissioners, no, you have to take a look at the worst case scenario and how we're going to handle that. Now, one of the things I noticed watching the 2024 presentations by Vistra that were filmed and available was they talked about they had a third party that did an assessment of if they had a unexpected incident and a bunch of smoke and stuff was flowed out of the location, and they one of the things I noticed on their chart, they're talking about O2 or HF, hydrogen fluoride. But what I didn't see is anything about dioxins or heavy metals.
Yeah.
It's like, excuse me, what about that stuff? That wasn't shown to people. That's why when you start digging into this and you go, well, I can't say they were misleading them, but certainly it came to my mind, well, the heavy metal batteries. Mm-hmm. What about? And it wasn't shown up in those presentations. And then I look out and see that the state isn't sampling for stuff after an incident. And you go, this isn't good. So there's things the regulator needs to clean up and things the operators need to be cleaned up. And before, and I've talked to a number of people in STOP, Brian Phelps comes to mind, and Carol Jorn, I think it's the pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That I believe that, and have recommended that the supervisors of planning departments in Santa Cruz County ought to find out what the heck happened at the storage over in Moss Landing, because maybe there was a battery, a suppression, and a storage design errors. Are they showing up in your design that you're showing to the public in Santa Cruz County? Do any of those weaknesses appear in your design? Well, if you don't wait for the results, how are you going to know?
Exactly.
Because you're dealing with operators, in many instances, trying to do the best job, but it didn't work with self-policing in Moss Landing.
No, it didn't. And I have no confidence either, Ed, that the new legislation being proposed, and even the legislation that's intact from Senator Laird, would improve that. It's all placing trust that the industry will comply. And obviously, they don't.
Let me make a couple of comments about we got Addis with 303, and
yes.
Then we got Laird's. Looking at the wording on Laird's bill, we talked about having them. Part of it was they had to talk to, the operators had to talk about incidences, fire incidences, with the fire department. You don't hear the word, the worst case, or the word thermal runaway, or uncontrolled thermal runaway. The words thermal runaway, which is the case that you need, the fire department needs to know, okay, what's a low-level risk problem, middle, what's the worst case, and what do we do in those cases? That worst case isn't in, the people could comply to what Laird said in his bill and not ever have to talk. They're not required by code. You got to talk to them about the worst case scenario of uncontrolled thermal runaway. How do we handle that? How do we recognize it? How do we handle it? How do we then alert the public? How do we get the drones flying? That type of stuff. They're not required to talk about that. They can talk about incidences, but they're not forcing them to talk about the worst case, uncontrolled thermal runaway. That's the weakness that I see in that. The question is, does the new code, can it be subverted, complied with, but yet you don't achieve the outcome you want? That's what I think is weak about his. Now, on the other side, Addis is looking at places where you should set back. One of the things we talked about in our investigation is site risk. That is, when you choose to build in a place like Morro Bay, right next to a lot of uphill housing, residences, right next to your main commercial area, and an estuary, there's risks to people in the environment around that industrial site. Then you come up to Moss Landing, you got the federal Ocean Bay Sanctuary, you got the state estuary, the reserve, you've got a mecca for tourist attraction, you've got local businesses, and then you have the Salad Bowl of America.
Yes, the prime agricultural area.
So you have, at that site, you have, I forgot to say, the 10 cities that curve around from Santa Cruz, past Watsonville, Castroville, bending around to Marina, Seaside, Monterey, and Pacific Grove. You have that crescent of 10 cities. It has, I think, Morro Bay being where they were going to put the storage facility there, right next to all that housing, is, I think, really high risk for those people if there's a problem.
Yeah.
And but Monterey Bay area, if it's not the top worst place on the California coast for putting in this type of storage, it's at least number 2. Yeah. It's 1 or 2. And so therefore, Vistra chose to go ahead and build there. So they have an obligation to, they're accepting the potential that if something goes wrong, they could mess up a lot of stuff real quickly. That happened.
Yeah.
So that site risk, and the high risk isn't just to the public. From their own company viewpoint, if you screw it up for some reason, not intentional, but you tried your best, but if you screw this thing up, you become one of these common fires, the company's paying a huge penalty. And that's what's happened to them. So the high-risk design that we believe the layout was a high-risk design. It's high risk to the company. It was high risk to the public and the environment. And yet they went forward with 50,000 batteries spread across one floor.
Incredible.
And so we don't know if it was first floor or the third floor that caught on fire, but the heat is so intense that it melts or causes the beams, the structural beams, to slump or completely fail.
Yeah.
And if you look at the pictures of the building and you see the black burn area, you can see the collapse occurred.
Yeah. I should just, you will be amazed at this, Ed, that in looking at the plans for the Seahawk energy storage site in Santa Cruz County, that's already in the permitting process. Our county has no code, no ordinance regarding how this should all be built or placed or anything, but there have been apparently some deals made and it's already in permitting process. This is New Leaf Energy based in Massachusetts. Their risk assessment says that it is based on one battery burning. That's their worst case. One battery burning, and that the plume would stay within the project's footprint. Isn't that amazing?
Okay,
And these are the people that are essentially writing our county's battery energy storage ordinance. The planning
okay,
department is letting them write it.
two things.
Yeah.
One, I'm not surprised that the local county people haven't come up with the ordinance, because the state hasn't.
All right.
And the people of the county aren't as experienced as the state certainly is. So it's harder for them to write. A guy like me, now in our team, we could sit down and start laying out some things for him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, back to that, I believe the stop folks or whoever need to demand or request or sue, if necessary, for the planning department to reassess that risk assessment based on the reality of looking at what happened at Moss Landing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if they again, if you're looking at the worst case, the wind, that is multiple batteries. I don't know how many. I do not know the designs, interior of the three plants. I only know that the one you described is not using the lithium nickel or manganese nickel cobalt battery that Vistra used. They're using another one that the industry claims is less likely to go into thermal runaway.
But it still burns.
That's
still
true.
burn.
Just twice as dirty.
Yes.
If it does burn. Okay, so
Yes.
So if you look at with real world data within 15 to 20 miles of the siting that the Santa Cruz Planning Department or Board of Supervisors is thinking about approving, I broke out laughing, and I'll say this. It's laughable, that risk assessment that was provided, because it is not to scale for your worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you only had half the building burned down, it's far more than the one battery thing. So that is a laughable, I'd throw them out. We're starting over. We're going to say, you need to go back and do your work, because that isn't even close to reality, because we've seen reality.
Yeah.
But that's up to them. Now, I worked on, I better be quick about this. In Monterey County, we worked on preventing fracking from being, it was a zoning issue, and we addressed it as a zoning issue, and we blocked fracking, not because people were against the oil, it was because it was the wrong place to be doing fracking, because it could ruin and pollute the single source of water for the agricultural sellable America and 74,000 jobs. That eventually had to go to court. And if that's what the people in Santa Cruz have to do in order to say this risk assessment is laughable, it can't be accepted, and if you do, we're going to vote you out the next time around. But I think that people there may have to sue to stop the Board of Supervisors or the Planning Department from accepting that type. They need to complain and force it up to the Board of Supervisors, and if necessary, go to court.
Yeah. Our Board of Supervisors has been very resistant to taking any action within our county. It was appalling to me to see that there was only one supervisor that right after the Moss Landing fire that wanted to have some testing done here. We all know that plume traveled over Santa Cruz County too.
Yep.
And that supervisor had no support from any of the other 4 supervisors for even getting soil and water samples taken. Eventually he prevailed, but he could not convince them to push back the date that was at the time April 25th to approve the ordinance for these facilities in this county. They were not willing to support him. And what happened politically is he is quiet. So what have you seen? And Ed, we're coming up on the top of the hour. If you have time, you're welcome to stay on and we can continue this conversation.
I'd like to finish with this.
Okay.
If the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Department, but let's say the Board of Supervisors, Santa Cruz County, if this is such a good deal, and it's going to be such a great technology, and the risks are so low, then hold a public town hall meeting and discuss it with the people. Argue your case.
We have asked that so many times, Ed, and they won't. They refuse.
Well, that tells you that they don't want they don't want to engage.
Exactly.
They want to force it through. And again, I start going back to this may be where you have to go to the courts to say no. This is baloney.
What?
This zoning. Now we ran an initiative and we're able to pass it. And that's what you may need to do in Santa Cruz County.
We may. Just like they did in Morro Bay.
I think that the investigation report that Never Again Moss Landing has turned over to the Board of Supervisors, and we will be choosing when and where we'll make the delivery to the state, which we haven't done yet. But we believe it's a resource that should be read by the Board of Supervisors in Santa Cruz County, but by the STOP people and others. I think it's an asset for them, and I think it's an asset for the truth. I'd say it this way. Here, it's their data. Here's the picture of the batteries running down the whole length of the doggone building.
Yeah.
There's no intervening walls. You can look at the pictures yourself. That can also help moral, and not because we're trying to harm the industry. It means we're standing up for the public and saying, hey, you can't just be putting technological time bombs in communities and going, oh, it's okay.
Yeah. Nothing to worry about. Nothing happening here. Ed, tell the audience how we can find you and Never Again Moss Landing.
NeverAgainMossLanding.org is a website for us. There's some Facebook. You can chase us down on Facebook. Also, we have a symptoms page where people have reported their symptoms. You don't have to chase me down. Okay. I get enough work, but the best way would be to contact us through our website.
NeverAgainMossLanding.org. Yeah. Do you have any events coming up?
Not public events.
Okay.
There's some stuff now that we're moving forward with, coordinating with people, trying to get, for example, the word out, and your radio show is an excellent way of helping from Morro Bay to Santa Cruz for communicating and sharing information. So not that I know of right now.
Okay, very good. Well, we have trickled off the air. You are welcome to stay on if there's anything else you want to say. I'm going to continue talking about this in the second hour, so you're welcome to stay on if you want.
Becky, I'm tell you the truth, this is just between me and you and not the public. I'm being very careful about what I say and the evidence I mention, because and the only name you saw on that report is mine, because it's not uncommon for the big boys to try to intimidate people.
Yes, I know that well.
So I think you and I did a good job getting information out, and I'll walk away.
You did a great job. You did a great job, Ed. Thank you. And I really appreciate your taking time to call in. Thank you. The Stop People, we are planning a July 14th event to focus on the environmental issues around lithium battery fires. And our county's Commission on the Environment is going to be scheduling now a series of public talks about this issue. The first one is June 25th, and we don't know the speakers yet. They've put together a panel, but we'll make sure to send that information over to you.
Okay.
All right.
Appreciate
Very good.
That. We'll all work together, and maybe it'll help. Maybe it'll do better.
Indeed. We'll all work together, and it will be better. Thank you. Thank you so much for your good work. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Bye for now. Welcome back to Community Matters. I'm honored to be your host. I'm Becky Steinbruner. I'm here for another hour. If you'd like to call in to discuss what we talked about in our first hour with Mr. Ed Mitchell from the Never Again Moss Landing Group, or about anything else that I have on my agenda here to discuss with you, the listeners, this afternoon in our second hour. I do not have a second guest, so we're going to continue a little bit about the issue of the battery energy storage system, where it stands in our county, and what you can do to get involved. I want to again thank, first of all, Satellite Workspace and Digital Studio here in Santa Cruz. That's at 325 SoCal Avenue between Ocean Street and the beautiful San Lorenzo River. Satellite Workspace is a wonderful place to have a quiet, clean, secure workspace if you're working from home, or maybe you need a place to have a small meeting with your clients. They have all of that here ready for you at a very reasonable price. Many people started working from home during COVID, but kept their office space intact for the occasional client meetings. I would like to ask that you consider, if that is you, to come check out Satellite Workspace and Digital Media Center. They have all of that here, as well as a post office box where your mail can be delivered for your business. We share this space with community television, another gem in our community, and you also have the ability here at Satellite Workspace and Digital Media Center to check out, to rent equipment that you might need to make a podcast. So whatever your needs are, I think you'll find that you will be very happy with working or touring, at least, the Satellite Workspace and Digital Media Center. Again, that's at 325 SoCal Avenue in Santa Cruz. So I want to thank again my guest for the first hour, Mr. Ed Mitchell, for calling in from Prunedale. He talked with us about what happened in those initial hours and days of the Moss Landing fire, the largest battery storage plant in the United States, and when it caught on fire, the largest fire of its kind in this country. What happened? And he talked with us about how the state agencies were just not there. He talked with us about how there was really nothing in place to do air monitoring for public safety, environmental safety, and it's still being essentially ignored. So how does that fit in with Santa Cruz County? As Ed mentioned, there are 3 locations in Santa Cruz County where the County Board of Supervisors last October identified to put in battery energy storage systems. It's got an acronym, B as in Bravo, E, S as in Sam, S as in Sam, BESS. And the first one, as I mentioned in the first hour, is located at 90 Minto Road, off of Green Valley Road in Watsonville. Now, all of the boxes are checked for that in terms of fine. It's fine. But in reality, what is wrong is that it is adjacent to a very densely populated area. There is the Minto Road area that has houses up and down on both sides of the road. And at the end, right next to the PG&E substation, which would be adjacent to this proposed Seahawk energy storage site, is Shapiro Knolls, which is a 100% affordable housing area. Those people knew nothing of this project until some of the Stop Lithium Battery Storage, Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County group started going and knocking on their doors and telling them about it. In addition to these densely populated sections, right next to and downwind of this proposed site is what's known as the Diamond Estates. It's a residential subdivision, very dense, and those people also knew nothing of this project. Even further down is another subdivision on the Amador Drive, and immediately next to it is College Lake, which is a lake now that in past years has been drained so that the lake bed bottom could be farmed, but that's no longer happening. Instead, it is now part of a water reclamation project by the Pajaro Valley Water Management Agency to clean that water and pipe it to the coastal areas and use it for farming there, and not have to pump water from the wells in the area near the sea where there is salt water coming in the groundwater. And the Seahawk Energy Facility is also located within a mile or so of the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds, which is downwind of this project. Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds is the county's emergency evacuation shelter for people and livestock. So it is not a good place for this battery energy storage system, and the applicants insist that it is fine because unlike Moss Landing fire, which was all of these 100,000 batteries all in one big open room, one big open building, this one is designed, the design would have over 300 metal shipping cargo containers, essentially, that would be filled with batteries. And it is, as Mr. Mitchell said, the batteries are proposed to be a different chemistry. The Moss Landing batteries were lithium, nickel, cobalt, manganese chemistry. The batteries proposed for the Seahawk energy storage system would be lithium iron phosphate, supposedly much safer. But they do burn, and when they burn, as Mr. Mitchell said, they're twice as dirty as the nickel, manganese, cobalt chemistry. So do you think putting this next to a densely populated area with a lake that supplies water for farming next to the county's evacuation site is a good idea? I've also failed to mention that it would take 15 acres, 15 acres out of agricultural production. It's a thriving, working apple orchard, and it would all be taken out of production, which is not allowed in this county. In Measure J, passed by the voters in the 1980s, said you cannot take agricultural land out of production. We were protecting our agricultural land, and yet the county is set to approve this agreement to let New Leaf Energy and the Seahawk Energy Storage Facility take that agricultural land out of production and make a deal, some kind of a deal, a conservation easement somewhere else. And now, do you think that's right? What would worry you if you live next to one of these facilities? What would you want to see have happen at the county regulatory level, the Public Utilities Commission regulatory level? What would you want to see to know and be convinced that it is safe? Call in. Let's talk about this, because this is a big issue. And that's why I continue every week to talk about it. Because nobody at the county government meetings is. And that is, I think, a crime. So call in to Community Matters. The number here is 831-265-5050. And let me know what's on your mind. The Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County is, like the Never Again Moss Landing group, a grassroots group, and they have formed because we are shocked that the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors is being so lackadaisical about the thought of putting this type of technology in our county with no safeguards. It began last August when then County Supervisor Bruce McPherson pressed the county's planning department to come up with an ordinance to allow these sorts of facilities. I must tell you that at the time, Mr. Bruce McPherson was on the board of Central Coast Community Energy, 3CE, which supplies, which collects the money from 96% of the customers, electricity utility customers in Santa Cruz County. 96% versus PG&E's group. You had to opt out when all of that got started. And Mr. Bruce McPherson was very instrumental in forming 3CE. He pushed the county to get county planning department to get this on the agenda before he left office. Many know he decided not to run for re-election, and he wanted to get that done before he left his office. He had the support of the county administrative officer, Mr. Carlos Palacios, who controls the purse strings and also sits on the operations board of 3CE. They were able, in spite of complaints, pushback, if you will, from the county planning department. They said, we can't get this done before October. It's going to take environmental analysis, and that will take at least 6 months. And Mr. McPherson, Supervisor McPherson, was adamant. He said, no, I want to see it by October. So sure enough, the end of October, here it came, with three sites selected. Initially there were 4, but they had done their homework by then in October and determined that one of the sites they wanted to do was within the city of Scotts Valley's boundaries, and the county would have no jurisdiction there. That tells you the level of thought and homework that they did and how it has been so rushed. So the 3 sites are the one that is currently under permitting application at 19 Minto Road in Watsonville. The second one is near Aptos High School on Freedom Boulevard. And the third one is on Paul Sweet Road near Dominican Hospital. Now, does that make sense? To put something that could, when it burns, and it will burn, would spread a toxic plume to a hospital? I don't think so. So those are the three sites. And initially, at this hearing in October, the Board of Supervisors pressed the county planning department to say that they would have everything ready to go for a final ordinance to that would spell out how these types of facilities would be built, what they would be, what requirements would the county would have, and they said by April 25th of 2025 we will adopt this. What happened in between there was significant. On December 17th, New Leaf Energy, with the help of a local planning consultant and former employee of the Santa Cruz County Planning Department, that's Mr. John Swift. He now has his own business, Swift Consulting. He applied on behalf of New Leaf Energy to get this off and running at the county level. It's not a public document, but you can call or online schedule an appointment with the county planning department records room to go look at the documents. They are not public, so, and that is by a new law. The applicant has to agree to make them public, and they did not. But you can look at them and you can read them in the planning department office under by appointment. And that is what I have done. That is what Miss Nina Adino has done, tirelessly reading document after document after document. And these are large studies that have been done 2 years ago, some of them, by a very large environmental consultant that moved into town about 3 or 4 years ago, Dudek Consulting. Dudek also has done a lot of the environmental work for the downtown expansion plan that we've talked about here on this program, and you will be shocked to see those plans. If you've been through downtown Santa Cruz recently, it's not the same Santa Cruz, and it's only going to get higher and denser. And that's thanks to Dudek's skillful environmental analysis to check off the boxes that are necessary and to tell the regulators, the county, the city, what they need to know and rubber stamp it all. Dudek. So that's who has done much of the risk analysis, and what else have they done? Archaeological analysis, drainage analysis. The document that I described for Mr. Mitchell in the previous hour is from another source. It's actually question and answer that was posed by the Watsonville Wetlands Watch group, because they're very concerned about the potential impacts of this fire risk to the local lakes. The lake area of Watsonville, not only is there College Lake, there's Pinto Lake, Kelly Lake, many, many lakes. It's called the Interlaken area. And so that's where New Leaf Energy said there is a very rare possibility of there being a fire, but if there were a fire, the smoke plume would stay within the footprint of the project. Those are the sorts of things that these developers, these applicants are telling the people. And I'm sad to say that the county planning department and staff is just saying, oh, okay, and allowing New Leaf to write our county's battery energy storage system ordinance. That date of April 25th, when the board was set to approve it, got pushed back because the other significant thing that happened, aside from New Leaf filing permitting application in December was, of course, the Moss Landing fire that occurred in January. And the Board of Supervisors, Manu Koenig, wanted to push back that date and got no support. The April 25th approval date of approving the ordinance wanted to push it back until there was information on the Moss Landing fire, and he got no support. And in fact, new 2nd District County Supervisor Kim DeSerpa said, "I'm sure there'll be information by April 25th. Well, there hasn't been information, and there still isn't information. The board decided, or someone decided, to push that ordinance approval date back to September 9th. So that's when it's scheduled to come before the County Board of Supervisors in Santa Cruz County that would rezone these 3 parcels to industrial zoning use. And I want you to know that there are grassroots events coming up because the County Board of Supervisors are silent. It has not been discussed other than public testimony at Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisor meetings. And none, I repeat, none of the Board of Supervisors has or is willing to hold a town hall meeting about it, to talk with people about it. But the grassroots group, Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County, is. And they have held 2 public events, both of them near the Minto Road area, very well attended, and people want information. The other one is coming up in July 14th. That will be at, tentatively, the Live Oak Grange on 17th Avenue in Live Oak, with a focus on helping educate people, provide information to people about these other 2 sites. That is the one in Aptos, near Aptos High, and the one on Paul Sweet Road near Dominican Hospital, to bring them on board so they're not sideswiped by not knowing about all this. The people in Watsonville around 90 Minto Road, they know now, because this group, this tremendously energetic and compassionate group, Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County, has worked tirelessly to get information out, to put up signs, to hold 2 public meetings, and bring in a panel of different people, experts, fire department experts, and they've brought that in. So mark that on your calendar, July 14th. It will be in the evening, tentatively at the Live Oak Grange on 17th Avenue near Capitola Road. The other interesting thing coming around is that the Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment is planning a series of panel discussions about battery energy storage in Santa Cruz County. This is a very interesting group, and they have already heard, I believe it was in March, they received a presentation from Central Coast Community Energy, 3CE's manager, Mr. Rob Shaw, who incidentally lives in Aptos, presenting about battery energy storage technology. And the commission asked many questions, and there were many people in the audience who asked many questions referencing what happened in Moss Landing. So that is coming up, a series, we understand, and the first one tentatively is June 25th. I think that will be an evening meeting. The commission traditionally meets in the County Board of Supervisors chambers at 701 Ocean Street. That's on the 5th floor. And I believe that's where that will be. We do not know who is going to be on the panel, but the chairman of that commission, Mr. Chris Damhorst, he has integrity. And so I will hold hope that we'll get some good information, well-balanced information, not just a repeat of whatever Dudek, the industry-paid consultant and New Leaf Energy will try to feed people. So put that on your calendar, June 25th. I think their meetings are usually in the evening, 7 p.m., but you can look it up. Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment. And that is kind of the county's mouthpiece for the environmental action plan that the county has adopted. That's actually kind of driving this feverish rush. The state of California adopted the date of 2045 as the deadline to have this state's energy grid 100% renewable, that's solar and wind, energy. And the Santa Cruz County Environmental Action and Adaptation Plan chose or lists, and this was all pushed by the Board of Supervisor and the Planning Department, and I think Carlos Palacios, the CAO, they set the deadline of 2030. That's 5 years away. And that is what is pushing this feverish rush to get these battery storage places in our county. How did they decide where to put them? That's what I want to know. And I filed what's called a Public Records Act request, which anyone can do. And I'll tell you how to do it, because you need to know. First of all, when one files a Public Records Act request, the agency is legally bound to provide you with any and all documents that you request. And they are required to do so at no cost unless there is a cost to them for printing or whatever like that. But if there's not, if it's all digital, they cannot charge you anything. So what you ask for is, and this is called the Sunshine Law, where you put sunshine in the dark places by getting information. And so you ask the agency, in this case I asked the County of Santa Cruz, for any and all documents, correspondence, meeting notes, sketches, maps, relative to the selection of the battery energy storage system facilities for Santa Cruz County. And I asked for that 2 months ago. And by law, the agency that you file this request with must respond to you in 10 days to at least let you know that they have accepted it, and if they have any responsive documents, that's the word, responsive documents, things that respond to your request. And so I did receive a response, and the county uses this really, in my opinion, horrible platform called Next Request, where it goes into this digital hopper, and they and I believe it's run by the clerk of the board, the clerk of the board. And she farms it out when these requests come in to the appropriate agency, the appropriate department. And so you get a response, and I got a response after 10 days that yes, there are responsive documents, and we anticipate having them for you. By law, is what it is within 30 days. So they gave me that date. And that date came, and I received a response saying, we need more time. We'll get it to you in another 2 weeks. And it is delayed. Those delays of 2 weeks have come now 3 or 4 times. And I recently, just last Friday, got another delay. No reason. They don't have to tell you the reason other than it's voluminous, or that they take more time for redaction of sensitive material or whatever. So anyway, I'm still waiting, and I encourage you, if you're interested, to also file this Public Records Act request for how did they decide where to put them. The energy people say that it must be located next to these electrical substations, the PG&E substations. The 3 locations that someone selected for the county are, but in truth, they do not have to be. They do not have to be there. It is cheaper to have them next to an electrical substation, but they do not have to be there. So that's a myth, and needs to be pointed out at every opportunity to the county board of supervisors. I think those people are asleep. I actually do, and I think that some of them have been threatened, especially Manu Koenig perhaps, for taking some bold action to try to push back on this effort in our county. And what we need to demand, and have been demanding, is a moratorium on lithium battery storage in our county. Lithium, as you heard from Mr. Mitchell in our first hour, is the technology is very, very hazardous. And while it may be considered by the energy industry to be the panacea for getting off of fossil fuels and storing all of this excess solar and wind energy that our communities have, because everybody's putting solar panels and getting a rebate for it on your roof, that there's an excess of that energy in the day, but at night there's not. And so that's what they say is the need, the great need and urgent need to have these battery energy storage facilities around. We are at a crossroads here because the lithium is the danger, but there are alternative storage technologies that exist, sodium, many, many other kinds, and yet the money is behind the lithium technology. And so, like anything, you have to follow the money. So we have to insist that our county government pass a temporary moratorium on lithium battery storage, as they have done in Morro Bay and other jurisdictions around in the state of California. We also need to demand that our county convene an expert panel of people, not just the battery energy corporate leaders, but also people who know regulations and who would be able to help our county write an ordinance that would have strong regulatory, very clear regulatory provisions that would and will protect the people and the environment. And then the next thing we need to do is insist that our county supervisors hold town hall meetings and talk about this. Do not put this ordinance on the consent agenda where they hide things. Do not put this ordinance on the regular agenda without any town hall meetings in advance. That is a travesty, and we need to hold our elected officials accountable and demand this. So link arms with the Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County. You can find their website at stoplithiumbessinSantaCruzCounty.org. You have to type it in. You can't just type in and have AI do a search for you because it's a rather new website. They've had a Facebook up for quite a long time, so you'll find the Facebook by doing that kind of general search. But for the website, and it is a thing of beauty, let me tell you, Nina Adino has done a tremendous amount of work along with many others. Diane Dutton-Jones, Elizabeth, I'm spacing out. Elizabeth Dunn, and many others who are really working tirelessly to help the people in our communities understand and know what to do to take action. Stop Lithium BESS in Santa Cruz County. They'll have an event July 14th at the Live Oak Grange, and you will see them, and I hope you attend the June 25th panel discussion of this issue on that will be organized by the Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment. Why don't you call in and let's talk more about this or anything else on your mind to 831-265-5050. Just a little bit more about this lithium battery is that in China, which is, as we know, the largest battery manufacturing country in the world, they are switching to sodium battery technology because there are so many fires that are happening with the lithium battery technology in their country. I have an article here that talks about why they are, and it's being caused largely by the increase in electric scooters in China that are catching fire. So many fires on the electric scooters that China has been changing to sodium battery technology. And I'm hoping that there will be someone from the sodium battery technology industry. There's one called Natron that has just opened up a shop in Santa Clara, and I'm hoping that they will be on the panel June 25th for the Santa Cruz County Commission on the Environment. And we need to be asking that they and other alternative technology experts be on a professional expert panel to help our county write the ordinance. As I mentioned in the hour of before with Mr. Mitchell, the California State Fire Code is due to be updated. They update it every 3 years. And the fire codes for battery energy storage technology are really, really out of date, like 15 years behind. So that's going to be a big piece of the 2026 state fire code updates. On July 24th, there will be a symposium, Battery Energy Storage Systems Fire Safety Symposium, for local fire departments and officials, but it will be hybrid. Sacramento is the physical place it will be, but you can also sign up, and it's free. It's free. Sign up to register now to sit in on this symposium and learn more and have a stake in what the fire codes will be crafted to do to support not only fire protection for the people who live around, but our firefighters. They are extremely dangerous conditions. As Mr. Mitchell said, The North County fire people showed up. They had no drones to really assess what was going on there. And this was a toxic plume. What did they do? I've been told they left. But what would the Pajaro Valley Fire District firefighters do? They would be the responders there to the 90 Minto Road facility that's under permitting right now. What would they do? I've read in the plan that New Leaf has put in is that no firefighter should go within 100 feet of the facility because these 300 plus storage containers filled with lithium batteries are prone to explosion, and the doors of these containers would become projectiles. I want you to look up an incident of battery energy storage, or BESS, fire in Surprise, Arizona. Surprise, Arizona, in 2022, where one of these containers caught fire but wasn't showing visible flame. There was smoke pouring out from around the bottom, and the firefighters arrived and flooded it with water to cool it down. And then when it looked like it had subsided, they opened the doors and were met with an explosion that knocked the firefighters hundreds of feet away through a chain link fence, and they were on fire. They were physically on fire. So don't tell me that these containers and lithium iron phosphate batteries are safer. They are not safe. And I want you to look up and read about the battery fire at Surprise, Arizona in 2022. There was another one down in San Diego not long after, Escondido area. Same thing. So look this up. All right, call in if you want. 831-265-5050. We've got about 15 minutes here. I'm going to go over some other things of local interest here in our last few minutes. I want to tell you that I did attend part of the recent Santa Cruz County Supervisors budget meetings. And the one on Tuesday, this last Tuesday, was it was so long. This was the wrap up. They combined a regular meeting with in the morning that went very long, and then the budget meeting, the last half close of budget meeting. And I could not sit for the whole thing. I had something else I had to do, but I wanted to know what happened regarding the hearing of my guest last week, Mr. Tim Richards, who talked about his community in Bonnie Doon appealing the cell phone tower, 151-foot tall cell phone tower in their neighborhood, and how the Planning Commission had sided with them that there was no gap in coverage and therefore this tower was not needed. And the people are worried about the cancer causing effects of these towers living next to them. So I wanted to find out how that went. I couldn't stay that day. And I looked at the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors website where you can click on recorded meetings. And I clicked on the website and it was still going at 6:30 at night. The Board of Supervisors meeting was still going at 6:30 at night. How can anyone make effective, clear-headed decisions having begun at 9 o'clock non-stop? I think maybe they took a 30-minute lunch. It just should not happen. And we need to lobby our County Administrative Officer, Mr. Carlos Palacios, and Mr. Felipe Hernandez, who is the chairman, that they should not allow that. They should not allow that. Another day, continuing meeting would have been much better. So I am sorry to tell you that what the board decided regarding Mr. Tim Richards and the Bonnie Doon community was that the board sided with the applicant, with AT&T, because they said, if we don't, we're going to get sued. If we don't, we're going to get sued. And many people had fought the inclusion of the camouflage of this 150-foot tower that AT&T was going to try to make look like a tree, that it would spread microplastics all over the place. So to address that concern, the board said, well, we won't camouflage it with any microplastics to make it look like a tree. We'll just have them paint it green. And that's what they came up with. That was the best they could come up with. Now, I really want to say that I commend Supervisor Justin Cummings. That's his area, District 3. And he said, look, if you're going to make a decision based on solely because you're worried about being sued, you have to understand that these people also have the ability to sue, and we're going to get sued. Now, do you want to support a corporation, or do you want to support the people in our county? And none of the supervisors would support his motion to uphold the Planning Commission's earlier decision to support the people. None of the supervisors would. And that's a real disappointment. So I commend Justin Cummings for standing up for his constituents. I'm sorry to report that it went that way, but I don't think we've heard the last of this. So I wanted to report on that. I also, I urge you to go to the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors website and click on any of the archived meetings where you can watch, thanks to community television, what happened in those meetings. Watch them and listen to them. Don't rely just on the minutes, because they don't tell you anything. You can also find proceedings of other local community meetings, governmental meetings, by going to Community Television, Government on Demand. And you'll find Soquel Creek Water District, Capitola City Council, the Santa Cruz County Regional Transportation Commission meetings. You'll find those there too. Speaking of the RTC, the Regional Transportation Commission, my guest next week, this has been in the news a lot lately, the big price tag for that the Regional Transportation Commission has come up with for the train and for passenger rail in Santa Cruz County, and the trail next to it. Billions with a B, dollars, and it's been in the news. I had a couple of weeks ago interviewed here Miss Sally Arnold from Santa Cruz County Rail and Trail. And next week, my guest will be Mr. Brian Peoples from Trail Now, who has been fighting tirelessly to try to convince the Regional Transportation Commission that there is not enough room in the rail corridor for both a passenger rail and a trail, and that the trail, the recreational trail, would be superior. So he'll be my guest next Friday here on Community Matters. I also want to tell you that last night I attended the Santa Cruz Mid-County Groundwater Sustainable Sustainability Agency, GSA. That is a group they meet at the Capitola Library, and it is a board that includes representatives from the Soquel Creek Water District, the City of Santa Cruz Water District, Central Water District, and the county, and 3 private well representatives. I have been attending those meetings for a long, long time because I'm very interested in water, and that group governs the policy in how this area, the mid-county area, groundwater is effectively managed, and that is in response to the state's groundwater sustainability laws that said that the groundwater level must be at sustainable levels by 2045. So I attend those meetings, and the big thing they talked about is on the horizon taxing private wells, and they just don't know how to do it. There was a big discussion in March. It was actually on St. Patrick's Day in March. This group held a public town hall for private well owners, and the room was packed. The room was packed on St. Patrick's Day, and they presented their ideas about how they would tax all private wells, but really no basis for why or for how much. So last night there was a handful of those private well owners there, but the board itself deliberated about should we tax them based on how much water they use. We don't know how much water they use. Should we tax them on acreage? Well, how do we know? And how much money do we need to collect anyway? It could only be a couple of dollars. So if we tax them, the cost of collecting the tax and administering it might be even more than the amount of the tax itself. So they talked a lot about different things, including developer fees. We all know what Santa Cruz downtown looks like. Well, we're going to see an explosion of high-rise in areas of Aptos, Live Oak, Soquel, and this is all at the state's insistence that there be building dense infill for affordable housing. One of the things that I did talk about last night as a member of the public, along with those good folks that came from the private well sector, was that the groundwater level in the Mid-County Basin is not overdrafted critically, as they are saying, and as the state is saying. It is a fallacy. I'll talk about more of that, but here's just a quick snippet. In 1980, the groundwater basin was classified by the state as subject to critical conditions of overdraft. This finding, according to Bulletin 118-80, that's the state's classification of groundwater, was, quote, at the request of the city of Santa Cruz and a supervisor of Santa Cruz County, end quote. They did that because they wanted to control growth. Well, I'm near the end of this hour. I want to thank you all for listening to Community Matters. I'll be back next week with Brian Peoples talking about Trail Now and the Rail Trail. Thank you.